maximally from the facilitation. So thank you once again. Good afternoon, and I say happy Sunday once again. Last uh, was policies that we have, especially the one that has to do with social welfare. When we talked about the national social welfare, national social protection policy, and we also talk about youth policy, gender policy, as well as other related policies, which has so many things to do with the welfare or the well-being of the citizens as formulated by the government, especially the government at the national level as well as the government at the state level. This afternoon, we are progressing on the functions of social welfare policy, where we stopped last time. And as a way of reminding us, we try to define the social welfare policy, what the social welfare is, and the policy, the distinguishing features between policy and law, so that we'll not be mixing the two together. So, like I said, we are moving straight to the functions of social welfare policy, and this include one, social welfare policy, as you know, is usually designed to address social problems of the society. One of the major functions of social welfare policy is to address the problems in the society. The other time I mentioned that when a policy is about to be formulated, the current situation of the society or the current situation is always reviewed, so that one will have the opportunity of identifying the problem, the existing problem that will warrant the need for a new policy or the need for any policy at all. Again, the social welfare policy is also meant to redistribute societal resources to those who ordinarily do not get the resources if policy are not in place. So these people will not be beneficiary of such resources. So a major function of social welfare policy is to redistribute societal resources. Like I made reference. I believe we are adults in this class. I wonder some people cannot even mute their mic and they will be disturbing us. This is not encouraged, please. The Nigerian case is a very good reference for us to understand. In the oil producing states, the Nigerian government gets revenue, huge revenue. Over 95% of our revenue comes from the oil producing states, from the oil that we have, from the oil reserve that we have. The revenue we get from there is what is redistributed to all the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory for them to ensure that governance is in place. That is what the government, the resources the government at various levels are using to address or to even ensure that we have governance in place. So if social welfare policies are not there, ordinarily, maybe people like all of us will not be beneficiary of that resource, will not even be sharing from that resources. Sharing the resources without sharing the resources anyhow, or sharing the resources extravagantly, or sharing the resources corruptly is another thing that we may talk about another time. But the fact is, these resources are there, and because of the policy of government in place, they devise a revenue formula, and that revenue formula gives certain percentage to the federal government, gives certain percentage to the state government, gives certain percentage to the local government, and some other related agents. And of course, 13% derivation fund is allocated or is gifted to those that produce the resources. That is as a result of the recognition of the fact that these resources are not equitably distributed, and there's need to do justice to it. So in any case, the social welfare policy also is meant to erase social inequalities in access to education, health, economy, urban space, etc., and etc. Perhaps some of us wouldn't have had the opportunity of going to school if the social welfare policy is not in place. We wouldn't have had that opportunity to go to school. But because the social welfare policy actually put in place the need for everybody to have equal access to education, as well as the healthcare services. It is also designed to cater for the right of special populations in the society, like the children, older persons, motherless babies, orphans, people with disabilities, the displaced, refugees, and immigrants, and so on and so forth. So all these have many things to do as function of the social welfare. So, like I was saying, another function of social welfare policy is that it is also designed to cater for the right of special populations in the society. I think I've explained that. It is to restore hope in those affected by natural disasters or economic policies of government. Look at the privatization policy. When Obasanjo came as our president, I think it was during his time that we had this bureau of, is it the bureau of what do they call it? This bureau that El Rufai headed then, uh, bureau of privatization, something like that, and there was a privatization policy put in place that was implemented to ensure that the government, the governance, the government has nothing to do with business any longer. And that was when they brought the idea of privatizing the electricity, the NEPA then, privatizing so many sectors of our economy then. Because if that is not done, people that are affected by all this policy, they are taken care of by the social welfare policy put in place. The regulation policy, look at the oil subsidy removal that we have now. The oil subsidy, as a result of the regulation policy, we had oil subsidy that is being given by the government. But this government now removed the oil subsidy. And look at the effect. And what does the effect, what implication does that effect, does that removal have on every ordinary citizen in the country? Removing the oil subsidy, the government now came up with palliatives, what they call palliatives. That is part of a kind of a social welfare package or social welfare programs for the citizen. Then during 2019, we had, or in 2020 rather, 2019/2020, more importantly in 2020, we had COVID-19. The COVID-19 crisis brought about so many consequences, and this consequences were mitigated by various governments, especially at the federal level and at the state level. And what we have today as NCare, or the particular specific state care, which is COVID-19 action recovery, action recovery, economic stimulus. That program wouldn't have been in place if not for the experience we had during the COVID-19. All these programs, they are designed to mitigate the effect of COVID-19. So in many states of the federation today, even at the federal level, there is this state healthcare programs. At the state level, there are these CARES program, which has to do with mitigating the effect of COVID-19. Like I said, the healthcare is Nigeria COVID-19 action recovery and economic stimulus. At different states, they just changes to their name, to their nomenclature. The social welfare policy also perform the function of cushioning the negative impact of epidemics and pandemics from society and protect the future of incoming generations. You know, severally, we have those in the health sector, they will understand this better. The immunization policy of government. For more than 2 decades now, 3 decades even, around early 90s, there were campaigns on the need for the newborn baby between 0 and 5 to take immunizations. These immunization policies, they are there for us to guarantee the future of our young ones, our children, for us to have a good future generation. So looking at all this, you can see that social welfare policy or social welfare as a program or social welfare as a project performs a number of functions that sees to the betterment of the citizen in the country. Don't forget that what we are looking at is, as a social worker, is to ensure that every individual lives a satisfying life. Every individual at least live a minimum has a minimum standard of living. Every individual is at ease with himself, and that will lead to community being at ease, and that will give a nation being at ease at all the times. So what are the factors that impact on social welfare policy? You can also get more functions of social welfare policy as you desire. What are the factors that impact on social welfare policy? Those factors that you can consider that can affect social welfare policy. One, the economy of the state. Of course, look at Nigerian economy now. As a father of 2 children, the 4 in the family, if you are a salary earner, the salary you earn this January, your budget in January, you cannot compare it with the budget you have now in May. Why? Because the cost of fuel in January is different from the cost of fuel, how much you spend on fuel today, this May. So as a result of that, there's that economic burden on you to ensure that your family survives. So in that regards, your social welfare, your social well-being is being impacted upon by the economy that the government of today imposes on us, or the economy that we have in Nigeria today. Everybody will say the economy is bad, the economy is no good, the economy is not, the economic situation in the country is not favorable. So when such happens, it has a ripple effect on our social well-being. Then prevalence of poverty. Already many Nigerians are living below the poverty level, the standard poverty level. Some are in abject poverty, and majority are in poverty. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about that. Per day, how much does an average Nigerian earn as a worker per day? If you look at it, you will see that that one does not measure up to the standard that is put, that is the standard that we have or as put across to us, or the standard that the United Nations set for anyone that is that can be counted as a living worker. Again, the income and wealth distribution in the state, the gap between the rich and the poor, the gap between the have and the have not, that gap is widening every day. It's widening every day because the distribution pattern, the distribution trajectory of the rich and the poor, they are different. So as a result of that, that will also impact on our social welfare. Again, politics and the political environment, that one is not far-fetched. When Buhari was there, the oil subsidy regime continued. The oil subsidy regime that has been there for years continued. Of course, before Buhari, when President Ibele Jonathan was in the saddle, in 2014, he tried to remove the oil subsidy. Many people, there were many critics of that effort, or of that, because there are many people that were against him because he wanted to remove that oil subsidy. He made us to understand that if the government continue to subsidize the oil sector, the government will be at the losing end. And that is exactly what happened. But people criticized him. People protested across the nation. People engineer, some people mobilize civil society groups, mobilize so many people, stakeholders against that government in order not to remove the oil subsidy. And today, one government come, some of the people that were even against his Jonathan's administration then were the one they were the one that took over from him in 2015, and they couldn't even remove the oil subsidy. And the same government, the same APC government continues up to today. That the same APC government is the one that now removed the oil subsidy day one when he was sworn in as the president. He said oil subsidy regime is gone and is gone forever. And all of us, we are witnesses to the effect of that. We are witnesses to the impact of that. Again, the economic ideology of the government. Do you even understand the economic policy of this government? Every government, every administration has its own economic policy or economic direction where that government want to, the path that government want to tread. So because of that, it has impact on the welfare or the social welfare of the people, of the citizen. And the impact is not just an ordinary impact. It is very, very heavy. The laws and constitution of the state. Remember, we talk about regulations. We talk about laws. We talk about legal instruments that surround the issue of social welfare, or that even surround the practice of social work. As a practitioner, you are to be abreast of all the legal instruments that are relevant to your practice. As a practitioner, you need to abreast yourself of that. You need to be cognizant of that, and you need to know more about all these legal instruments that are related to your practice for you to be a competent social work professional. So any law in place, the laws of the land, they are supreme, which we practitioners, all practitioners, irrespective of your field, we must respect, and we must ensure that that law are adhered to, and the same way all the regulations. There are specific laws, there are specific regulations in respect of each profession. Like in the Chartered Institute of Social Work Practitioner of Nigeria, We have our own act guiding. We have our own act guiding the conduct of the professionals, guiding the conduct of all of us that are members. So anytime anybody runs against this law, such a person has sanction awaiting him or penalties, as the case may be, depending on what is spelled out in that particular law. So it is important that you also avail yourself of the opportunity of going through the act that established the institute as well. Anyway, we will get to it when we consider the legal instruments in social work practice or in social welfare policy formulation. So the natural disasters uh, is another factor that may impact on social welfare. War as well. Look at you can also imagine what is happening in Palestine and Israel. The war there now. You can also imagine the impact that war must have had on the social well-being of the people of that area in that Mid Eastern country. The same thing, Russia, Ukraine. These are far places. You may say these are far places from us, but we have the effect. Even we feel the effect in Nigeria. We feel the impact in Nigeria as well, because there was a time our oil revenue began to dwindle because of the war between Russia and Ukraine. The same thing, when there is any uproar in the country, that has effect in another part of the country. Look at terrorism in the northeastern part of Nigeria. Look at kidnapping. Look at banditry in the northwest. Look at kidnapping all over and all over. All this will definitely shape the kind of policy, the kind of social welfare policy that we may need to put in place. Because of the terrorism, because of this militancy, even in the southeast or in the eastern part of the country, the terrorism in the northeastern part of the country, leading to the Boko Haram and all the rest. All this would definitely reshape the kind of policy that we had in place. And of course, in the 80s or in the 60s or in the 70s, did we have what we call the IDP camps as we have now? Did we have them as we have now? There was nothing like that. Internally displaced persons camps, we have it all over, especially in the Northeast. And our policies that are formulated to ensure that those camps are run properly. The operation of those camps are spelled out in the policy, and that actually shaped the social welfare policy of that region. Then urbanization as well also impact well on our social welfare policy. Of course, you remember the rural-urban drift. How many youth are in the villages these days? Because of that migration, the social pressure that we have in the cities is not as what we have in the villages or in the suburbs. Again, the industrialization is another factor. Look at Lagos, look at Ogun State, look at some other states that are highly industrialized. Look at Port Harcourt, look at Benin, Enugu, and so on and so forth. You can't compare them with some states that are not industrialized at all, states that have no industry. So all this, they tell more on the kind of social policy that could be put in place. Then international community and international conventions like CEDAW. CEDAW simply is Convention on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. It was a convention by the United Nations then, just about discrimination, campaigning against discrimination against women. That was when women empowerment, women emancipation started. If you are a good student of history, you can remember Beijing conference which was the first international conference that talked about emancipation for women. So all these conventions, all these conferences, all the charters of human rights and so on and so forth, United Nations Charter on Human Rights, all other conventions that are related to issue of social welfare, all these conventions, they impact on the kind of policy that we have at our own local level or at our subnational level or at the national level, as the case may be. In Nigeria as a state, those conventions, those international treaties, those international charters, they have effect, they have impact on our own social welfare policy here in Nigeria. Of course, you know, the kind of visa policy that is being put in place by the American, by the UK government, you know, they impacted very well on our own soil as well, and it has effect on our own social life. Then public opinions of people. How do people react when how do people react when government makes a policy? Look at what happened when there was a policy, I think about 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks ago, when the CBN just issued out a kind of just trying to introduce a policy of every policy when you make a withdrawal on our money. Is it the policy on the when you make a withdrawal from your bank account? What I've forgotten the kind of levy they call it. The charges they put. What did you say?
Internet security, cyber security.
Okay, thank you for that. Cyber security levy. Look at what happened. Look at the reaction of people. The public opinions. People began to protest. People began to oppose. That's a human policy. And what did the government do? Government immediately withdrew that circular and said, okay, they should put it on hold. I know they just put it in the cooler for after some time, maybe they want to bring it out. If people just kept quiet, will have been, the consequence will have been on us. Will have been bearing the unnecessary, will have that burden on us unnecessarily. Because as a result of that public opinion, the government had to change the policy immediately. The government has to change the policy. Otherwise, it will have been paying. You know, if you also remember, some years back, maybe about 10 years, I can't precisely, I cannot remember, the Federal Road Safety Commission tried to introduce a kind of policy that every car user or every car owner must change the plate numbers of their cars or of your vehicle. Every vehicle owner must change that plate number, trying to reverse the way we write the number plate, and they now said and when you do it, you have to pay. You know, everybody kept quiet except one person, and that person went to court, I think in Lagos, and that person went to court to challenge that policy, that inhuman policy, that policy that has no human face, and the court ruled that the FRSC should stop that and has no right to do that. In the first place, you are the one that even issued the first plate number to the owner. Why are you asking them to pay for another number to another plate numbers when you know you want to introduce the kind of a pattern that you didn't think about before? So if everybody kept quiet, will have been in that burden up till now. But today, everybody got that freedom. The policy just died there. They couldn't introduce it again up till now. So if you have an old number, a plate number, you continue to use it until it fails. Then media reports. From media report that we hear here and there, it encourages private people, public people to ensure that we have a policy in place that can address those. Of importance is, look at the media report we have. We always hear about kidnapping. The media reports that we have about insecurity. That is giving government a lot of concern, and government always think about the way to solve that. They come out with different strategies, with different policy to address it. And of particular reference is what happens in the southwestern part of Nigeria. You know, the southwest state, they came together to form an internal security network called Amotekun. If not because of all the reports we had here and there from Ekiti to Ogun State to Ondo State and so on and so forth, because of the insecurity, they came together to form this internal security. Even though it was first of all brought about by incessant media reports, later the people took it as a policy, and they now change it again. They took it to the House of Assembly for the House of Assembly to enact law on that. And those states that have the Amotekun now is as a result of that law that were promulgated, that were enacted by their various state houses of assembly. Then another factor that we may also consider is riots and political protest. Of course, it will come to your mind the NSAS protest that we had. Was it in 2021? Was it 2021 or 2020? Either 2020, I think it was in 2020. This NSAS protest that came up in 2020. So what came out of it? That first government at most especially at the state level, even at the federal government, to change some of their policies about youth, about the way to even handle some of these youth that engage themselves in maybe in cyber crime and all this and that. And immediately the federal government or the Nigeria police abolished the SARS unit of the police. They changed that policy immediately. If no protests, if there were no protests, if there were no riots, that wouldn't have happened. You know, after that, government at various states, they set up the panel of inquiry. What do they call them? The panel of inquiry at various states to actually investigate what actually happened, and even award benefit to the victims of the victim of those maltreatment or whatever. So if not for that protest, that policy will have, that SARS will have been in existence. They will have continued their nefarious activities, and no, they will just be doing it unchecked. So because as a result of riots, as a result of protests, so if you keep quiet, you don't challenge inhuman policy, so that policy will just be there, and you will continue to grow under that, and that is not too good. So these are some of the factors that impact on the social welfare policy, and as well as its formulation. I want to believe this list is not exhaustive. You can also add more and add more and add more. But if you look at all these points, it's about how many? About 16 I've been able to explain to you, which you need to note well. So from here, okay, this is 3:35. We just spent 35 minutes. From here, we now move to process of policy making. That is cycle of policy. We call it cycle of policy. What are the stages involved in making policy? What are the steps to take to formulate a policy? And to say that, okay, this is a policy. To tell people that that policy document that you see is not just, it does not just come by. It has undergone a series of steps, a series of process, and it has undergone a series of review. It has undergone so many other things for it to have come out as an outcome for us to see as a single document. And I believe that many of us, we have seen many policy documents before, not necessarily social welfare related. Any policy that you have seen before that policy must undergo this process I will explain in a few minutes. A policy that is established and carried out by government goes through several steps from inception to conclusion. Remember, government as a body has its primary responsibility as its primary responsibility rests on security and welfare of the citizens. So as a result of that, government has enormous responsibility on the citizens. And one of such is the formulation of policy that will address the problems affecting the citizens. So that is why at various levels of government, the primary responsibility that is expected of that government is to protect and to ensure that the security of lives and property is very important. So in that regard, government owes enormous functions on all of us. Although we have our own duties to also perform, but government, a group of people cannot do it. Private sector cannot do it alone. The private sector, the private people, they don't have that power. It is only government that has that power vested in it to ensure that the welfare of the people is actually protected or is provided. So these are the stages are agenda setting or building, formulation and adoption, implementation, evaluation and termination. So we're going to consider all this. Agenda setting. Before a policy can be created, a problem must exist that is called to the attention of the government. For example, youth restiveness in the Niger Delta, in those days, before I think during Obasanjo regime, Yaradua, Jonathan, before then, during Obasanjo regime most especially, there was a youth restiveness in the Niger Delta. And you remember that also brought about this particular program that Yaradua implemented during his time and Jonathan continued, which is the engagement of the youth in the Niger Delta, what they call the youth amnesty in the Niger Delta. You remember the amnesty that is granted to the youth that are involved in restiveness in the Niger Delta. So if that problem is not there, the government cannot think about the policy to address that particular problem. Because of that youth restiveness, the government come about the amnesty program for the youth in that part of the country. Drug abuse by the youth. How do the government address the drug abuse? If there is no that problem, we don't have NDLA as we have today. Because of that problem, the government has to come up with the NDLA, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. The same thing for the Almajiri in the north, because we have many Almajiris in the north. These are children that are of school age, but they are not going to school. They are not attending schools. So government now decided to ensure that these are people, these are own people, these are citizens of the country, and in fact, these are future generation of Nigeria. The government had to design the Almajiri schools. I remember Jonathan actually commissioned a number of Almajiri schools in the north. To do what? To encourage the young ones to go to school. Free education put in place. If the Almajiri menace is not there, government wouldn't have what we call the Almajiri schools. The Fulani settlement we have to, even in the southwest, in the southeast, we have what we call nomadic schools. The nomadic schools are established to address the problem of education for the children of the nomads. It's as a result of that problem So these are problems that must be identified first before you can say you want to have a policy. Motor park crisis that led to a number of policy on the motor park. Some people has some government, some state government has introduced this what do they call it, park system, park system that they use. So because of the crisis that we always have, why among the NURTW members and so on and so forth, they have to introduce park system regime. We have road accidents accident on our roads. Our roads are not that motorable. Government will come up with policy. Government will look at this problem and say, how best can we address this problem? Terrorism, I've talked about it. Banditry, I've talked about it. These are problems peculiar to Nigeria, of course, and there are problems that will be peculiar to other countries as well. But in different states of the country, there are problems that are also peculiar to them. And when those problems, when they come up, when they manifest, the government of the day must address them. And a way to address them, they are going to come up with policy. And before they can come up with policy, they need to identify those problems properly. And that is why we talk about the agenda setting. Government identify all this, and various policy addressing them accordingly. Specific event can place a problem on the agenda. A specific event can cause a problem, it can cause a problem on the agenda. So they have to set that agenda right well and ensure that there is a problem we need to address. There is a gap that has been left unbridged, and this gap must be bridged. That will bring about, that is the first step in policy formulation. Remember I said, when we started, I said you need to identify a problem. When you're talking about policy, you need to identify a problem. So when there is a problem, then you know how best can we now address it. So that is the agenda setting. Then for formation and adoption. Policy formation means coming up with an approach to solving a problem. We have the executive, legislature, judiciary, and various interest groups may be involved. At this point, various groups are involved in formation and adoption. That what kind of policy do we want to use? How do we now come together to ensure that we form a policy? At this point, there will be contradictory proposals. People will come up with different ideas. The ideas may not be congruent. Different interests will come in. So, but from all this, policy formulation must have a tangible outcome. When you come together like that, you cannot decide to have a tangible outcome. And when a workable option is taken out of all the ideas, out of all the presentations, out of all the proposals, then adoption will set in. From the various ideas, from the various proposals, from the various suggestions and all this, they will now come up with the adoption. Then they now adopt the path to tread. So over the years, many countries have formulated social policies that they think are desirous for the improvement of living conditions of their citizens. Like I said the other time, there have been so many policies in Nigeria that have been formulated over the years. But as time went on, there were reviews and reviews and reviews to meet the immediate need or to adapt to the current situation. So as challenges come, then they will want to change that policy. That is why in most policies they have most policy, a good policy must have a lifespan, 3 years, 5 years, 4 years, and so on and so forth, for the formulator to review it or to discard that particular policy. One factor that is expected to shape the nature of policy we choose is the nature of social problem in our society and the developmental challenges in that country. So the developmental challenges that we have in the country will also shape the kind of policy. I think I explained that one the other time. These are under formation and adoption of policy. The major social problem of the 21st century Nigeria Nigeria of today, what are the major problems that we have? They are terrorism, kidnapping, political violence, corruption, women trafficking or human trafficking, armed robbery, kidnapping. Policy maker may decide to rank all these problems based on public opinion and arrive at appropriate and informed decisions. Because we have a myriad of problems. So the policymaker will come together and say, how do they harmonize? How do they now review? How do they now look at them and juxtapose and look at those that are related that can be packed together and address as a problem by a policy. So these are very, very important. Remember that a problem that we have that we have identified, people will have to bring ideas on how best we can now tackle those problems. So this will give us an option of adoption of the idea that best suits our problem, or that will best mitigate that particular challenge that we have. Again, we have implementation. Another step that needs to be considered is the implementation of the policy. It's an important aspect. You see, at the point of this policy, this policy formulation, people of different opinion will come together. There will be public hearing. Public will submit their proposal and so on and so forth. Just people will submit memorandum or memoranda and they discuss about it. Then the implementation or carrying out of policy is most often accomplished by institutions other than those that formulated and adopted it. A statute usually provides just a broad outline of a policy. Successful implementation depends on the complexity of the policy, coordination between those putting the policy into effect, and compliance. What are we saying here? This is a very, very important stage in policy formulation. Very, very important. Why? Because the essence of formulating a policy is to solve problems. And for you to solve that problem, the policy you have put in place must be implemented. In the policy, there are strategies, there are actions to be taken, and there are strategies to achieve them. In the policy, we have the objectives, we have specific objectives, we have overall goal, we have specific objectives, we have strategy to achieve them, and who to handle certain area. That is what we are talking about under this implementation, because it has to be by institutions. When a policy is formulated, it may be that policy will be implemented by the Ministry of Women Affairs, or the Ministry of Social Affairs, or the Ministry of Children Affairs, or the Ministry of Youth, or Ministry of Women Affairs, or any other related ministry. Might be the implementing ministry. It is very important. That is why it is the institution that will implement it. We're talking about NSAS the other time, when a policy was formulated to end that SARS as a unit in the police. The police institution, the police as an institution is saddled with that responsibility to disband that particular unit. So that is what we are talking about. At times, it involves some specific stakeholders to take charge of certain aspects of the policy. They are very important at this implementing stage. They are different from those that formulated and adopted it. Some people may formulate it, some people may even adopt it, but the implementation is going to be by some other people that are different from those that did that. So, and of course, today you also know that implementation of our policies is a question that every one of us will answer. To what extent has have all the policy that we have in Nigeria, to what extent have they worked? To what extent have they addressed our problems? So these are questions that every one of us can also answer. The evaluation and termination. Evaluation means determining how well a policy is working, and it is not an easy task. Like I just put to you now, I want you to evaluate some of our policies, especially the social policies. If you can evaluate them, it's not an easy task to evaluate, and you want to determine how well that policy has worked. People inside and outside of government typically use cost benefit analysis to try to find the answers, because if you don't introduce cost benefit analysis to find the answer to this question, it's going to be an agreeing task. In other words, if the government is picking, if a government is if government is spending 1 billion of naira on this policy, are the benefit derived from it worth the expenditure? Do you remember Emefiele saga? I think I heard it in one of the media reports that Emefiele use a very huge sum, trillions of naira, to print millions of naira. I think I heard that report. I'm not specific now. I can't be precise, but I heard that he spent the amount he used to print a certain amount of money is much more higher than the money that was put in the circulation. So it is at this point that you now to you evaluate. Maybe a policy is in place, you want to change that policy, you need to evaluate and look at the cost benefit analysis, use cost benefit analysis strategy to ensure that you are not spending much, you are not using sledgehammer to kill a fly. So if you do that, it means what you are doing will amount to nothing. So cost benefit analysis is based on how to come by data that are subject to different and sometimes contradictory interpretations. Policy that is terminated is deemed to have been obsolete, not working, or lost its support among the interest groups and other stakeholders that place it on the agenda in the first place. So after evaluation, when you evaluate, what do we get? You evaluate for you to know whether the policy has been effectively implemented, whether the policy has effectively and efficiently addressed the problem it was designed to address initially. You evaluate to find out that as the policy that is put in place, has it contributed to national development at all? These are questions that must be answered during evaluation. I said it's not an easy task. So this is a stage that will let you know that for a policy to become a good one, you must have run through these stages and it must have been tested. So when you look at the existing policy, do you need them? Do we go ahead with that existing policy, or do we continue with the old policy? When that is no longer needed, then you terminate. That is when the cycle terminates. You terminate that policy. You only terminate the policy that is obsolete, that is no longer useful, that has even lost its value, its usefulness in the society. Then you terminate. And do we even need to place it as part of our agenda in the first place to form the agenda setting? So these are identified stages that we use in policy formulation in summary. So you can read more about this, and for you to understand better what I've been trying to explain as regard the cycle of policy formulation and implementation up to the last stage of the cycle. So I wouldn't know. Let me see what we can add to this discourse this afternoon before we can call it a day. Oh, we still have a very long way to go. What we have in 2 lectures, I think we should finish that. So let me give you the opportunity to ask questions now. So maybe after your questions, we can proceed if time permits. If time permits, we can proceed. And let me allow you to pass your comments or to raise your questions, as the case may be.
Good evening, sir. Good afternoon,
Good evening. Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Please, Pastor, the lecture is quite interesting and we are enjoying it. You're doing a good job, sir. But, sir, it would have still be better if we can get the handouts, please, sir.
Yes,
so
I
we
will
can
give
be
it
on
to
same
you.
page.
Don't worry. Don't worry. I will send it to you as soon. I'm trying to update some things in that in the manual, so that, because I want it to I just want to add some things to that manual. Otherwise, ordinarily I would have sent this to you. So I want to update some part of it. It's not much, so but I will get it across to you. You are welcome.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Please, sir, can you give the rundown of the process of policy making or policy formulation again? The agenda setting, formation and adoption.
Yeah.
Implementation of the policy.
Yes.
Cost benefit analysis. Evaluation.
Cost benefit analysis is under evaluation, please.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Evaluation, cost benefit analysis is under evaluation.
Noted.
Okay, then we have termination.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you are welcome. Yes, any other question?
Hello, sir. Sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, I'm with you.
Okay, my question is under the process of policy making, whereby a government has made a policy and implemented it, and the policy is not in favor of the masses. As a social worker, do we have any right there to chip in anything that will later be in the favorable of the masses? Or do we just go by the government?
Thank you so much. That is why you are a social worker. Okay, it's not in this class, in the other class. Is one of your duties is to challenge unfavorable policies, to challenge policies that are not working well, is to challenge any situation that you see is so challenging and is not in the interest of anybody. So you can challenge, but you challenge appropriately. There are channels that you can make use of to challenge those bad policies. So you go through that channels, and when you are challenging the policy, you must be objective in your analysis. You must be objective and you must be factual, and you let them see reason why those policies are not working. You support your challenge or your idea with a number of facts. You support it with data that are verifiable and that are reliable. So I hope you understand that. And when you want to challenge policy like that, you can start from the side of the executive, and if the executive side is not working, you can go through the legislature. The legislators, they have that power to change any policy, even without the consent of the executive. By so doing, they're going to introduce public hearing, and at that public hearing, they give you the opportunity to vent your ideas, to let them know why that policy is not working. Most of the policies that we have today is as a result of some agitation, as a result of protest, as a result of some people trying to even challenge some of these things that are inhuman, that do not bring any benefit to the people. So you have that right, ma.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So you're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
So anyway, if there are no questions or comments now, I think we can proceed. So in order to save our time, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. So aside this, We will now move on to the legal instruments in social welfare. I don't know. I hope you all have the course outlines. So we want to look at the legal instruments in social welfare. What are the? Remember, I mentioned about this earlier in my lecture when we started today, that we will soon get to the legal instruments in social welfare. What are those legal instruments that are needed that you use? What are those tools that you can make use of? What are the weapons? You know, instruments in this case, they are your own weapon that you can take from your this thing, and you can make use of. So these are some of the weapons that you can use. Though they are not physical weapons. They are not that weapon that the police use. So they are not the weapon that the soldier use. So, but they are your own weapons that you can just take from your artillery and you make use of them. Number one is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I want to ask the last speaker. The last speaker, have you ever read the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended? Sorry? No, we lost your audio. You are not audible any longer. Hello? Okay, you are not audible. No. Can you have an instant replay of what you said? Can we have it? Hello, Okoro?
You mean the president?
We can't hear you. The last 1 minute. We lost your audio.
I was saying, hi, network. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Okay. I said that when a constitution is being implemented and it's not to the favorable of the masses, that the social worker has to act, started from the legislature. But when we acted, many a times, they don't even listen to us. So starting from the local government area. So,
yes.
In that case, we are just left alone and we are suffering what was implemented.
Yes. Although, let me quickly answer that. You know, Rome was not built in a day. And journey of 1,000 kilometers starts with a step, isn't it? You start somewhere. When you start with your agitation, yes, when you start with your agitation, when you start from today, I know one day, those legislators you refer to, they are not going to be there forever. There will be a time some legislature that will have listening here will be there. In fact, you may even have some of your colleagues in the legislature. And when you have them, you see, those are the people that will even push forward all this we are talking about. So don't relent in that effort. You continue to push and push and push. Look at the example. Look at what the politicians, look at what they do. Do you know they have a very useful power of lobbying? When the politician believes in anything, you know the way they approach it. They look at a good example is when PDP was in the saddle at the national level, and the AC then, or the AD, the APP, the CPC and the likes, they couldn't match their strength. What did they do? At the time they marched together, they were talking, but they were like nobody was talking. But later they marched to become AC. The AC couldn't work in 2011. Of course, yes, in 2011, the AC didn't work. What did they do again? They move ahead and they also marched with the CPC. They called Buhari with his own party and some other people, and they formed a coalition. And their coalition in 2015, it worked or it didn't work? It worked. But that step, that success they recorded in 2015 did not start in 2014. In fact, that started since 1999. That started in 1999, and at a point in time, they were successful. So the same things will happen to you. Don't relent. You continue to push forward, and don't say you are tired. As a social worker, you need to be resilient and continue to ensure that society, until society become better, until society become the dream, you become the kind of society of your dream that you want. So you don't relate. So I now put it to you that, have you ever read Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Have you ever gone through? Okoro? Hello, are you there? Anyway, if you are not there, for any of us, all of us that are on this call, if you have not been reading this, if you have not had the opportunity of going through the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it's not meant for the lawyers alone. It's not meant, it's a public document. It's not meant for those in the legislature to be citing section 2,
I'm not
section 5.
presently correct.
Anyway, your network is not good at that location. So it's not meant for the legislator alone, not meant for the policy maker alone. It's for all of us, because it's a public document. Nobody is keeping it as a confidential document. It's a public document that you and I to have access to, and the government has provided that access, only that we don't make use of that opportunity. So if you have not been reading, if you have not been going through the Constitution of Nigeria, if you are not conversant with it, this is a time for you to be conversant with it. Why? Because it has a lot about our practice. Why? Because it is a grand norm for any law in the country. As a citizen of the country, you need to understand what laws say. You know, in court, the lawyer or the court, they will tell you ignorance of law is not tenable in court. Of course, everybody should know that. So it is important that you understand it, so that you don't run foul of the law. You don't run foul of this, this is our supreme law, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's our supreme. It's like you are a Christian and you don't have a Bible. So how do we define your Christianity? You are a Christian, you have a Bible, but you don't read the Bible. And nobody is restricting you from reading that Bible. The same thing, if you are a Muslim, you have a Quran and you don't read it. The Quran is all over and you don't care about it. So what kind of practice will you be putting in place as an adherent of that religion, Islam? So that is why, as a social worker, as a citizen of the country, you need to know what is in that constitution, most especially the chapter 2 of that constitution. That's that chapter 2 is so significant to our own practice, to our profession, because everything about social welfare, everything about social life is embedded in that chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is the first instrument that we'll consider. The other one is the national gender policy. This policy is about gender, is about women, so to say, but it's gender. It's a policy that was formulated by the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs on women. How best can we handle our women? Talking about domestic violence, talking about empowerment. Another one that we may have the opportunity, it's important that we also consider it, is this National Social Protection Policy. You remember I told you about that policy. It's very important to discuss, and you need to be conversant with it as well. Get a copy. When you Google, you will get it. It's National Social Protection Policy. Just Google it, Nigeria National Social Protection Policy. It's an overall, it's a comprehensive document that addresses the social issues that we have in the country. You have heard about conditional cash transfer. You have heard about public works. You have heard about the empowerment of the elderly. The empowerment of youth. You have heard about empowerment of women, out of school children. How best can you address that problem, as well as the children in the ID camps, as well as the senior citizens, the elderly, the jobless, the disabled, and so on and so forth. This is a comprehensive policy that has addressed our social issues in Nigeria. We also consider Child Right Act. You have heard about that. It is an act at the national level. When it comes to the state and is domesticated or is adopted at the state level, that means it will be child right law in that state. With at the national, it is Child Right Act. And also, I also want to let us also look at the VAP Act. The VAP Act. What is VAP? Is Violence Against Person Prohibition Act at the national level. Any state that has domesticated that, it will be VAP law. At the national is the VAP Act, at the state is the VAP law. We're going to consider that. We're going to look at it, how it impacts on this particular course we are taking, and how it impacts on our practice as well. Because if you are practicing as a social worker and you violate or you run foul of any section or any part of these laws, the laws I've talked about, not the policy this time around, the law, it means that you need to know what is there so that you don't run foul of that law, of that particular section, so that you will not be sanctioned, so that you will not be penalized, or you will not be sued. Because when you are in court, you only deal with the laws. You only deal with extant rules and regulations. You deal with extant laws that we have. These are references that you can make. These are instruments that you can refer to in law court. These are instruments you can cite in law court. But remember, you cannot cite policy. I distinguished that the other time. But those that are laws, they are very, very important for us to know. And finally, we also consider our own law, which is the C-ISOWN Charter Act 2022. We also consider that. All these, we will consider them vis-a-vis our own profession as a social work practitioners. So these are some of the things, these are the instruments that we will briefly look at during the course of this program. So let me quickly introduce you to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Don't be afraid. Don't say, are we going to read what is in the Constitution? The Constitution is so voluminous. No, we only extract that part that concerns us specifically. So, and in this case, before you can go to any part, you need to understand what the Constitution is. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it's not important that you have a hard copy. You can Google and you get it in the website. You get the Constitution and you can read from there. So the chapter 1, that is the first chapter of the Constitution. It's important that I mention it so that we don't jump to where it concerns us. We need to have introduction. So chapter 1 talks about supremacy of the Constitution. Why do I have to say that? Because all other laws in the country, they are seen as under this Constitution. They are seen as subservient to the Constitution. They are seen as just a subset of the whole Constitution. That is why I cited it as chapter 1. That is why I cited it for you to understand. Chapter 1 is all about supremacy of the Constitution. What does this mean? Its provisions shall have binding force on all authorities and persons throughout the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So which means all the provisions in the Constitution, they have a binding force on all authorities, governments, everybody that actually profess that they have power, they have authority. Those with such authority at whatever level, this Constitution has a binding force on you, and even as a person throughout the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But when you leave Nigeria, you go to the Republic of Benin, maybe from Badagry, you just cross to Cotonou, you cross to Cotonou. Yes, you cross to Cotonou. So it has no binding force on you. You cannot make use of, you cannot start constitution in their own court. So that is just what I want you to know about it, that it is a grand norm of all the laws in the country. So all other laws, they just follow it. All other laws, they are just following it. And any law, you will see no law that is made in the country or that is enacted by the National Assembly that will not have that clause, that any part of this law that is contrary or that runs, that seems to be contradictory to any provision of the Constitution shall be null and void. Then chapter 2, that is our own area. It is about fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy. Fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy. What does that chapter say? The chapter talks about, when you look at the section 1 of the chapter, section 14, sorry, section 14 of the chapter, I'm trying to go to the sections that are relevant. The section 14 subsection 2b of that chapter states that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. You know, I mentioned it the other time. The security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. What is this saying? It's saying that the welfare of the people is our concern here. Don't forget that when you are well secured, your welfare is being taken care of. But the government has taken it together, the constitution has taken it together to be security and the welfare of the people. Shall be the primary purpose of government. That's it. All other things, they are just attachments. They are just attachments. But the primary purpose of government, because the language the constitution use is shall be the primary purpose of government. It's not, it has no whether it is possible or not possible, whether it is, if it is possible or if it is conditional. It's not conditional. Shall be the primary purpose of government, which means if the government is not giving us the right welfare, is not giving us the right security, which means that government has what? Has derailed from its primary function. But the interesting note here, even though it's quite unfortunate, is the fact that this particular section, this particular chapter of the Constitution, there are so many things under this chapter, all the sections there, this particular chapter 2 is not justiciable at all. The meaning is that you can't go to court, you can't take government to court for failing in its responsibility, or for not providing us with the right welfare programs, or for not giving us the right security, or not giving us the right welfare. Nobody has that power to go to court. It is stated in that chapter 2 of the Constitution. You can see how beautiful it is to state that the primary function of government is the welfare and security of the people. But when the government is not doing this, is not doing enough in this respect, or the government has failed in this respect, just like we are experiencing now, even this morning, I had the news that a lady barrister was kidnapped in Sokoto this morning, and the kidnapper has not even gotten to any of the family to either to request for ransom or whatever. So you can see, as government done well in area of security, but you cannot take government to court and compel government to provide it. That is the unfortunate aspect of it. You go to section 16 too, section 16b and section 12d. This one talk about suitable and provision of suitable and adequate shelter, suitable and adequate food, reasonable national minimum living wage. Of course, those in the labor union, I think last week, with the government, they are still on negotiating table. They are still negotiating the minimum wage or the living wage, as the case may be. So we pray that they will come out with a tangible outcome from their negotiation, so that the workers can have a minimum wage. So when we are talking about minimum wage, we are also talking about the welfare of the people, a certain section of the people. When the workers are well paid, when the workers' welfare is paramount to government, definitely that section of the community has been taken care of. Don't forget that the essence of social welfare is to balance inequality in the society. That is to redistribute resources among the citizens of the country, to ensure that everybody every citizen has equal access to resources. So that is one of the ways that the workers can also get their own access to that social services. Old age care in the National Social Protection policy, they derive so many things from this constitution, especially from chapter 2, for them to formulate the National Social Protection policy document that I refer you to the other time. The pension schemes, the unemployment, sick benefit, and welfare of the disabled. All these are related to what? Are related to social welfare or the welfare of the ordinary person in the country as a citizen of Nigeria. Then you can also take a look at the section 17B, which specifically talk about social welfare. All these sections I mentioned, please go through them and ensure that you understand them properly, and from there, whatever question you have, we can take it. But I know with that, when you read the constitution to that level, you will understand the essence of government, and you understand why constitution is important as an instrument to be used by social worker. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a confident point for me to stop today. So next Sunday, God willing, we're going to continue from here. So when we go to National Social Protection policy and other legal instruments, and after that, we will go to, or after that legal instrument, then we go to legal procedure for adoption of a child in Nigeria. And I think that's the last topic to be considered. So maybe by next week we should round up by next week by the grace of God. So the floor is open for you to ask questions on what I just added after the first session. Thank you so much. Question?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. I think Odunayo. Is it Odunayo?
Yes, sir. It's Odunayo, sir.
Okay, please go
Good
ahead.
afternoon, sir. Thank you for today's lecture. Really appreciate, sir. We also appreciate if you can have the material for the lecture, sir. We really appreciate that, sir.
No problem. You get it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Next person. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, this is the class governor, sir.
Oh, you are welcome.
Thank you so much, sir.
You are welcome, sir.
So the other time you said that you'll get back to us in the course of the week regarding the material. So I'm asking, when should I remind you, sir? Send you a reminder.
Well, I'm very sorry because during the last week I was so busy. That I hardly had time to do it. So let me do it this week. By the grace of God, before Friday, by the grace of God, I will try my best to get it across to you.
All right, okay, sir. So it means by Friday, I'll send you a reminder.
Before Friday, you will get it.
All right, sir.
I think I acknowledged your message the other time.
Yes, sir, you did.
No problem. Don't worry. I will do. I will send to you.
All right, thank you, sir.
So you are welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you are welcome.
Someone is my name.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, and God bless you for the lecture. The legal instruments we have here until Child Rights Act. The next one after that, I didn't really get it very well.
Okay, you didn't get the other one?
Yes, Child Rights Act. There's one in between. That's number 5. I didn't get it.
Number 5, that is the C-ISOWN. That is the Institute Act, the Institute Charter Act, 2022.
Republic of Nigeria, then National Gender Policy.
Yeah. Then
National
Protection Policy. And okay, and I also mentioned VAB law. or VAP Act. VAPP Act. VAP. VAPP. Violence Against Person Prohibition Act.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Enacted by the National Assembly. If it is state, any state that has domesticated it, it becomes VAP law.
Thank you.
Just to address the state specifics. You're welcome. Yes, any other contribution, question, comments?
Thank you for your time, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Okay, just to thank me. Okay. Well, I want to appreciate you too for your own time as well. And I pray that God will bless all your efforts. And in no distant time, we are looking forward to seeing you as part of us in the institute. And I believe all of you,
Amen.
all of you will be
Amen.
good instruments. All of you will be,
Amen.
will be good instruments to promote the institute better, to even further the cause of the institute by the grace of God. So,
Amen.
thank you so much. Until another time when we have the opportunity, I say remain blessed. God
Thank
bless
you,
you.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
You are welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you, sir.
You are welcome. Thank you too.
Fine, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Jesus Christ.
God.